Hi, welcome back to Deadly Affirmations, the video book. This snippet is the second part of chapter 15, and I should warn you, nobody's died lately, so somebody's going to get it in this chapter. If you're not fond of gratuitous violence, you might want to listen to this one because it's really good. Patience is just serving up them just desserts that we all know we'd all like to, but we're much too classy for that. But luckily for us, patience isn't. So once again, in the comments section, I will post a link so that you can buy a copy of this book, because it's even better when you read it in yourself and have all this stuff in your own mind rather than having me read it to you, which is very nice, I will admit. And I enjoy doing it. But you can read the whole book a lot faster than I'm doing this reading to you. Anyway, here we go. Back to chapter 15, part 2 of Deadly Affirmations. Here we go. The woman took one look at Wheezy, a frail old woman pushing a shopping cart down the sidewalk, her old unfashionable coat in the basket, along with plastic bags of what were obviously the kinds of food one would get at a food bank, stormed up to her and proceeded to tell this homeless woman exactly what she thought. "What are you doing on my street, young lady?" the woman began. "Looking for a dumpster to sleep in for the night? Well, we don't have that kind of accommodation here, I tell you. Everyone knows that homelessness is the result of poor parentage, poor education, and poor decisions made, as everyone knows, in a drug-induced haze." Wheezy stopped and looked at this crazy woman, her mouth open in surprise. The woman took Wheezy's silence and stupefaction for meekness and shame. "I understand, Miss Priss," she continued, "that there are people without the basic self-esteem to provide for themselves in the world. But this is River City. We have standards here, and I am shocked that you obviously have no standards." Patience was dumbfounded, but kept hidden and quiet, eager to see how far this terrible woman would spew her fountain of disparagement. The woman kept on without a pause. "How can you have failed yourself and your community like this? I had some problems once. They were much more difficult than anything you've had to deal with, but I persevered, picked myself up, dusted myself off, and saw myself through them. If you want my opinion, and mind you, I am just playing the devil's advocate here, Toots, you could always go to Father, what's his name, at that Catholic church, Saint somebody. It's a couple of blocks away over that way. I've never been to it. I'm an Episcopalian, but I've heard that mackerel snappers are soft-hearted and soft-headed," she snickered, "and suckers for a sob story. I am certain that if you could fit it into your busy schedule, if you would offer to put a few hours of work around the church, cleaning the Jesus statue or something, then they would let you sleep with the nuns. At least since you had saved up enough money for a little efficiency apartment. They are really good at that kind of thing, handouts, charity." Wheezy was transfixed, stunned, and unable to believe what she was hearing. The woman took that unbelieving response to her tirade of disparaging abuse as license to finish her screed. "I know exactly how you feel, and I'm sorry if you were offended, but you know that if you don't succeed at first, sweetheart, you should listen to your betters. So be a big girl and just skedaddle now. I've got more important things to do than waste my time telling you what you should already know. I'm only telling you this because it is my Christian duty and because I love you." And the woman almost strutted off down the block, not even looking back to see if Wheezy had followed her directions. Wheezy looked around to watch the woman walk away, shook her head, and laughed. "What an idiot," Wheezy said quietly, half to herself, but loudly enough for Patience to hear. Relieved to hear that her friend was all right after the confrontation, Patience decided that it was time to return the favor. She snuck away from the sidewalk where Wheezy would pass her on her way home, back along the hedge until she came to an alley that ran behind all of the houses on the street. Not wanting to lose track of that condescending, self-important woman, Patience hurried to the end of the block, still in the alley, and walked to the street where the woman had been walking. Patience looked straight ahead but saw no one. She looked to the right. There the woman was, about half a block ahead. Patience turned right and followed behind the woman, stopping to smell a flower or examine a bush here and there, making herself as inconspicuous as possible. 3 blocks later, the woman turned right, walked up a sidewalk, and opened the front door of a 1950s ranch-style house, faced in gray flagstone with dark green shingled roof, navy blue shutters, and window boxes that framed the windows. As Patience walked casually by, she noticed the address, 707 Meridian Avenue. She would remember that. Patience trotted home, hopped into her car, and drove over to the alley that ran behind Meridian Avenue. She parked behind an auto parts store about a block away from the woman's house. She took the tool case from her trunk and locked the car, and then walked down the alley until she came to the back of the woman's house. Patience looked to see if anyone was around, and then she saw that she was alone. She walked up to the back door. The woman was sitting at the kitchen table drinking a cup of coffee. Patience took the nail gun out of its case and inserted the battery into its slot. She pointed at the bush to the right of the back door and pushed the trigger. A 2-inch brad flew out into the dirt. Satisfied that the machine would work, Patience knocked on the door and moved to the side of the window so that the woman wouldn't see her until she opened the door. A minute later, the door opened inward. "Yes?" the woman's voice asked. Patience put her shoulder into the door and pushed, knocking the woman back into the house and onto her butt on the floor. "What is the meaning of this?" the woman demanded, shocked that anyone, especially this unfashionably dressed, obviously lower-class person, would be standing over her. Pushing the door closed with her hip, Patience said, "What does it all mean?" Moving closer and pressing the nose of the tool against the center of the woman's forehead, Patience pulled the trigger and heard the satisfying of the little steel brad plunging through the woman's skull and into her frontal lobe. The woman looked stupidly up at Patience, a thin rivulet of blood snaking down her forehead from the new hole there. "What?" the woman murmured. "Get down," Patience ordered, "onto your stomach." The woman slowly rolled over. It was as if she was an inflatable doll, and all of her air and energy and ability to think was seeping out of her, along with the blood and bits of bone and brain that were now oozing onto the kitchen floor. "Now listen here, you old hag." Patience stuck a brad into the crown of the woman's head. "I suppose that you're smart enough for a girl." The next brad went in about an inch to the right of the first and half an inch or so below it. "And you have a pretty face, but in my honest opinion, Cupcake, you should get a boob job to be a complete package." Over another inch or so and down another inch. "You should be flattered that you have someone like me to explain this stuff to you." By now, a half circle of holes where the nails had slammed into her was bleeding from the back of the woman's head. "I'm judging you right here and right now. You won't have to wait for St. Peter." "Do you really think that it's a good idea to bully your way over other people, demeaning them, all so that you can be the first to grab whatever you mistakenly think that you are entitled to?" "Speak up, squirrel." "You don't look as smart as an engineer, and you're not really pretty enough to find a husband. Ugly and stupid won't get you anywhere, honey." "Oh, don't take it so seriously, sweetie pie. I'm just trying to help." "You should think seriously about using what you've got, even though you don't have that much to offer. Or you're never going to find a man to take care of you." By this time, Patience had nailed a meandering circle in the back of the woman's head. The woman, who had initially grunted or moaned as each nail burst into her skull, now merely convulsed with each new spiking. "Now just calm down and think about what I've told you, Queenie. I'm pretty sure that even someone as stupid as you can understand. But just in case, I use little words. Do not fuck around with fuckers who will fuck you up." Patience put these last 10 nails inside the circle in the shape of 2 eyes, a nose, and a smiling mouse, a happy face of justice. She smiled at her handiwork and thought at the end of it and said softly, "I just thought that you should know, bitch." As the woman shuddered and convulsed on the linoleum, Patience walked over to the sink, grabbed a towel, and pushed the lever that turned the water on. She ran the end of the nail gun under the stream and wiped it off. "If you take care of your tools, they will take care of you," she told herself. She didn't bother to turn off the water. Someone would come and turn it off sooner or later. Patience walked to the back door, grabbed the knob with the towel, opened the door, and walked out. Then she put the nail gun, now wrapped in the towel, back into its case, closed the case, and hurried to the alley. She made it quickly back to her car and drove the long way home, stopping at a loose meat sandwich drive-thru. She was starved.